Now, a lot of people labeled Israel. I don't, people label me as anti-Semitic. I was like, man, I love Jews. I love everybody.
Mhm.
But a lot of people label the current state of Israel as the Synagogue of Satan.
Mhm.
Is there any truth to that?
I think in the New Testament, when Paul is talking about, because I mean, Jesus says that in
Yes,
early
it's a
on in
Bible verse.
Revelation,
Yeah.
right? It's
Mhm.
Revelation 2 and 3, where Jesus
Mhm.
is rebuking the churches, and he says, "I will make those who claim to be Jews that are not
Mhm.
Jews bow down before you." Talking about in the resurrection.
Mhm.
And then Paul says in Thessalonians that the Jews are contrary to all people
Mhm.
because they rejected the Messiah. So I believe that rabbinic Judaism is against Christianity, yes, and
Mhm.
it is a synagogue of Satan in that its philosophy and its theology are essentially collated against Jesus being the Messiah. Like,
Oh, he again says Kool-Aid, man.
it's not a genetic thing, right? So
Right.
sin isn't genetic. Sin is
Right.
a choice that we make,
Mhm.
and everybody sins.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, is it anywhere in the Bible where God's chosen people, family of Israel?
So here's the issue on that. I kind of don't know really how to respond to this, honestly. Because it's like they asked a very clear question, and his response is one that like lots of people I know who will be very anti-Jewish, who will come and say, "Oh, Israel is synagogue of Satan, Jews are synagogue of Satan," and all that, which is kind of which goes against the entire traditional Christian perspective. His take seems to be more of a little bit of a nuance, while also clearly being very, very anti-Judaism. I would say that personally speaking, so if you say that that you think rabbinic Judaism is against Christianity and therefore fits the description of the synagogue of Satan, I guess you have to think about that a little bit. But so it's not like rabbinic Judaism is in and of itself deliberately and fully anti-Christianity, although it has a lot of it has anti-Christian historical aspects and Christian doctrines, some anti-Christian history, some anti-Christianity history, because it early on dealt with Christianity as a heresy. So it was dealing with heresies and also dealt with Christianity as a heresy of Judaism and responded to it in terms of how you respond to a heretical sect. That said, there's a lot of Jewish history that is where like I recently just saw certain commenters on a certain rabbi, for example, who says that that we don't believe that there's anything evil or anything bad about Christianity. We just think that that it would be evil or blasphemous for a Jew to become a Christian. But if Gentiles want to be Christians, we think that they will be together with us in heaven, for example. So, it's a very complicated topic. I don't know.
Yeah, on the issue of this, specifically, the question is this the synagogue of Satan? I don't. I mean, I think you can interpret that passage in multiple ways, but I mean, in context, it's talking about people who are persecuting you. So,
Yeah.
So you could kind of more generalize it to anyone who's opposed to Christ or something like that, but you could also not generalize it and say, hey, this is speaking specifically to Jews who are persecuting the early church, and that's the synagogue of Satan. And therefore you could say, well, I'm only applying that to Jews who are in a position of power and they use that power to persecute Christians, and we're calling them the synagogue of Satan. So anyway, that's why I don't use passages like that, because there are quite frequently multiple ways to interpret these things. Hey, I did want to point this out. Ready?
Yes.
Look at this. You got Christ rules everything around me. Oh, Orthobro detected. He says, you two are way too smart to be this ignorant. If you objectively looked at the Talmud like you do the correct AP, even theoretically, should we examine the Talmud the same way we examine the Quran?
Yes.
Are those two parallels? Are those two parallels?
Oh, no.
I mean, in terms of the kind of text they are, should we apply the same?
No.
Yeah.
No.
The fact that that's how you phrase things already means you don't know what you're talking about, dude. And so, AP, you think this is just what do you think? You think there's a guy who studied the Talmud, or there's a guy who saw a meme on X a meme that we've already gone through. We did an entire long live stream where we went through all these passages and actually looked them up in the Talmud. Guess what? Sometimes they are messed up things. There are messed up things in there. Other times it's some rabbi saying it, and then another rabbi says the opposite. And it never gets put in the little memes. It never, ever, ever. And it'll just say, the meme will say, instead of saying Rabbi so-and-so said this, and another rabbi responded to them because they were arguing, they'll just say, the Talmud says this, and this is what Jews believe. And it's like multiple levels of deception there.
The very, very funny example that I'm just thinking of just now because it came up recently of that. Let me quickly bring this up here. Sepharia. As an honorary Jew, I like reading Sepharia.
Hey, one second, just before I get rid of this comment so we can see your screen there. Just want to point out, it says, if you objectively looked at the Talmud like you do the Quran, you would be heroes for Christ and save so many Jews. What you mean is if we went around like Nick Fuentes, and the Talmud, and this is what Jews believe, and this is what Jews believe, then we'd be heroes.
You really think you will win Jews over like that?
Yeah. You think that's what really impresses Jews when they go, wait, dude, do you know what happens when you bring up the Talmud to an average Jew walking down the street in Israel? They have no clue what you're talking about. That's what happens. I know, because I've brought this up with people where I was specifically saying, hey guys, you know what people are saying about you guys in general and stuff. One, they're saying we can't walk down the street without people spitting on us. And guess what? Christ rules everything around me. You're probably the same sort of person who shares those kinds of videos. Look, here's a video of Jews spitting. You see, this is what Jews do. I'm saying, hey, you guys might want to respond to some of these things that people are saying about you. And I'm telling them, saying, so for instance, they'll say about the Talmud, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there and they have no clue what I'm talking about. Why? Because you have a very diverse Jewish population with a bunch of different perspectives, running from all just completely atheist and secular to extremely, extremely rigid and so on. And you've got everything in between. And the idea that Jews are sitting around here, yes, Jesus is born like a human excrement. That's what you guys think. And you think that if we go and tell them that's what they believe, then their hearts will melt and they'll become Christians. Are you seriously this stupid? So anyway, dude, you go do things how you want, and leave it to the grown-ups to decide what we want to do.
So here's the thing. As David also pointed out, Jews usually have the average Jew knows nothing about the Talmud except the average Jew knows what the Talmud is, and the average Jew has probably heard. The average Jew has probably heard one or two phrases from the Talmud. The average Jew has not read the Talmud, and you don't really read the Talmud. It's not really technically reading the Talmud. It's a huge library of things that you need to study. The average Jew has not read even like 1% of what the Talmud says. So this whole, why don't you talk about the Talmud? As if it was the Quran is just complete nonsense. It's stupid. There is a tradition in Rabbinic Judaism that the Talmud is studied even more than the Torah, but this is only done by the highest rabbis because it is because the Talmud is studied in order to properly understand the Torah. That's what it is. So it is a key to understanding the Torah, and it has like here what David just pointed out. So here is a passage. Here is a passage from the Talmud from Shabbat 31a. Very, very funny exchange here. The sages taught there was an incident involving one Gentile who came before Shammai. The Gentile said to Shammai, how many Torahs do you have? He said to him, two, the written Torah and the oral Torah. The Gentile said to him, with regard to the written Torah, I believe you. With regard to the oral Torah, actually, this is not what I was going to go into. Yesterday you did not. Here. There was another incident involving one Gentile who came before Shammai and said to Shammai, convert me on condition that you teach me the entire Torah while I am standing on one foot. Shammai pushed him away with the builder's cubit in his hand. This was a common measuring stick, and Shammai was a builder by trade. But look at this. You have him pushing away this Gentile who just says he wants to convert. What is this? Judaism treats people. You see, this is directly in the Talmud. This is directly in the Talmud. What is wrong with these people? Funny thing is that this is just one of those instances where two different things are presented. And Shammai is actually, so Jewish tradition revolved around two movements or two figures: the rabbinic Jewish tradition early on, or the Pharisaic tradition. One was following an elder called Shammai, and the other was following an elder called Hillel, who became very famous and popular. And Hillel is generally the one who is with whom rabbinic Judaism is very much in line. After presenting this incident, it then goes on and says, the same Gentile came before Hillel. He converted him and said to him, that which is hateful to you, do not do to another. That is the entire Torah, and the rest is its interpretation. Go study. You see how in this tiny passage here, there are two completely different attitudes presented by sages here. You could just read this one here and say, look at this. This is directly from the Talmud. This is how they treat people who want to convert to Judaism.
And they hit you with a stick and they beat you with a stick.
And yet here
And they kill you with a stick. They killed him.
Yet here the good perspective as presented in the Talmud is that the Gentile comes to him and says, I want to learn, teach me. And Hillel says to him, just that which is hateful to you, do not do to another. That is the entire Torah, and the rest is its interpretation. Go study. A sentiment also very, very popular in Christianity in the New Testament.
Yeah, guys, you see how this works? It's giving you multiple perspectives on these things. And what happens in the little memes from the Groypers and Orthobros and so on, it'll be, and we've seen this over and over and over again. One of the most common ones that keeps coming up is the Talmud says that if a Gentile learns the law, he must be executed. And you look at the reasoning he was saying, because they've stolen it, was given to us and they're stealing it, so they're basically robbers and so on. And with the understanding these guys had no authority to put anyone to death and so on. So they're just saying you deserve death because we treat you like a robber. And then, so they'll put that in their little meme. They don't put what happens right after that when another rabbi responds and says, no, if a Gentile learns the law, he's like the high priest. And you just get these completely different perspectives. They go through there, and what is this? This is a bunch of commentaries from rabbis giving their views and so on. You go through, and you say you pick the ones that you want to use to say this is what Jews are, and then you do that. You leave out everything else, and you say this is what Jews believe, even though your average Jew has never even heard that, and the ones who have read it would not interpret it the way you're doing.
Yeah. There is one perspective, which is that so Jesus most likely is very familiar with this quote, because so Hillel the elder came a little bit before Christ, and the Pharisees that Jesus was interacting with, that he was pretty much participating in worship with, would also follow the school of Hillel the elder. So this phrase here, which is very, very popular in rabbinic Judaism and was popular among the Pharisees, was probably very, very much known to them. So there is a perspective that when Jesus repeats the phrase of do unto other as you wish to be done to you, and so on, that he's actually interacting directly with the tradition that is presented here by Hillel the elder, and it's actually kind of responding to it or correcting it. Of course, that is a view that he's correcting it or saying something even better than it was established in the Jewish tradition that he was around. So this is all very, very much connected, but you don't really learn this when you listen to Nick Fuentes and the Groypers.
Yeah, that's true. So the general principle for all you Groypers, Orthobros, keyboard jihadis, and so on who are watching, the general principle is, if you want to criticize the Talmud. Just do it accurately, and don't say, especially after you've completely ripped something out of context and ignored what comes right after and so on. You would not respect anyone who comes to you and treats your book like this. So if you want to criticize it, find something. And if you want to criticize it, say it accurately and say, here's what a rabbi says in the Talmud. This is what a rabbi says in the Talmud. And for anyone who agrees with that rabbi and doesn't agree with the rabbi who responded, for anyone who agrees with that rabbi, that's messed up, because this rabbi said something really messed up. You wouldn't hear a word of criticism for me, because that's how you should criticize something if you want to criticize it, whether you're talking about the Bible, the Quran, anything else.
The funny thing is also one of the things that should also be noticed when Jesus interacts with the Pharisees in the Gospels. There is a lot of emphasis on the Pharisees because Jesus was interacting with the Pharisees very frequently and was arguing with them. But the thing is, he was also very, very good with them. Actually, he also had lots of good interaction with certain Pharisees. Most famously, we know of two Pharisees, Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea. So two Pharisees that were actually famous, that are also known in Jewish tradition, that were very, very sympathetic toward him, that are considered converts. But even later on, we have a Pharisee, Gamaliel, for example, who is very respected in early rabbinic Judaism, who is credited in the book of Acts as when the Sanhedrin seeks to punish the early disciples of Jesus after the death of Jesus, he speaks up and says, brothers, be reasonable. Don't seek to kill these people. So you have a very famous Jewish Pharisee stand up in the Sanhedrin to say, guys, let's not be ridiculous. Because the funny thing is, as much as people nowadays think of the Pharisees and say, look, Jesus was against the Pharisees and they killed him and so on, it wasn't actually the Pharisees who were mostly influential in having Jesus executed and the others persecuted. It was actually the Sadducees who were very much influential in getting Jesus killed and having the others killed. Caiaphas, the high priest, was most likely a Sadducee. The ones that were most likely to just go for the let's just kill him option were the Sadducees, not the Pharisees. The Pharisees were heavy debaters, and they were very much opposed to what Jesus was doing, and they had big arguments with him, but they were also friendly to Jesus on many occasions because Jesus was one of them. The Pharisees were not the main problem. The Pharisees are what turned into the rabbinic Jews. The Sadducees died out. The Sadducees were the literalist, highly legalistic people who were basically sucking up to the Roman authorities and thinking of just doing whatever will please the Roman authorities and whatever will preserve the peace. They were also opponents of the Pharisees. But after the temple fell, the Sadducees were no longer relevant and they died out. The Pharisees took over and they became the rabbinic Jews. And they were not the ones who were mainly behind executing Christ or persecuting and executing the apostles and so on. So there is a lot of nuance to this. Jesus and the others never collectively depicted the Jews as a blanket one group and put them all together as collectively evil. Never happened.
Check this out. Wade Davies said, do you want to criticize the Talmud, D. Wood?
No.
No, not really. Don't want to criticize the Talmud, the Tripitaka, the Bhagavad Gita, the Book of Mormon. Not really interested. Why? Because I kind of prioritize the group that's rapidly expanding due to birth rates, and it admits that it wants to kill me and all my friends. I kind of focus on the group that wants to kill me and all my friends and is about to take over large European cities and so on. More concerned with that than with a group that, what have Jews ever done to me? What have Jews ever claimed that they want to do to me? Right. So, I mean, keep in mind, I get endless constant threats to kill me and everyone around me and so on from one group. Tend to respond to those guys. So yeah, I prioritize that. I'm not telling anyone else because there are people who deal with Mormonism and yeah, I'm not telling anyone else what they want to address, what they should be addressing. Saying me personally, I kind of go with whoever is trying to exterminate me or whoever is aiding them in that in various ways. So that's
to be fair, we are also paid by the Jews to not criticize them. So
that's true. That's true. We get fat stacks of shekels. And then this one, D. Wood lumping. Dude, this is so brilliant. Like, D. Wood. Wait.
Okay.
Put it back.
Let's be done with it.
No.
I don't care about
Dude, just 1 second. Look, D. Wood. No, this is the point. D. Wood lumping ortho with Groiper and Muzzy. Gay pride. Dude, what have I been saying this entire time? If you guys are doing something and then you flip out when someone just does the exact same thing and you flip out, you've got a serious problem with hypocrisy, right? When you say, oh, if you disagree with us, you're supporting the Antichrist. And I go, no, if you disagree with me, you're supporting the Antichrist. And you cry like babies, then you've got a problem. What have we been pointing out this entire time? What did Andrew Wilson, look, you see, they're all part of this group. They're all part of this group with that all want to bring about the naming of the Antichrist. And so you lump everyone together. People who don't share the same views, but they share some particular view, you then lump them all together on all kinds of things. You guys do it over and over again. And you guys lumped us together earlier in this live stream. You lumped us together with Charlie Kirk and said we're all part of the same group. That was on Jay Dyer's little show that he was just on. So what do I do? Oh, okay. Since that's what we do, we disagree with someone and we lump them together with everyone else. Or I'll do it with you. And then that's so gay. It's gay when I do it, not when you guys do it constantly, right? I'm imitating you, you giant moron. I'm imitating what you guys are doing. And you instantly flip out, which is what I started off by saying. You're complete hypocrites, just like the Pharisees were. And Jesus condemned it. Would he be okay with your hypocrisy? My goodness. All right. There you go. Back to everything you wanted to cover.
Are you happy now?
Yeah.
Powerful. Orthodox Study Bible says about 23:2. To sit in Moses' seat means to hold the succession of office down from Moses himself. In the synagogue, the teacher spoke while seated as a sign of authority. St. John Chrysostom notes that the scribes were depraved in thought and in heart, yet Jesus still upholds the dignity of their office, for they speak not their own words, but God's. Likewise, within the church, the clergy are to be shown respect because they hold the apostolic office. Pretty much the perspective that you just talked about in a way. So powerful.